2021 was a fantastic year for music, but now going into the new year, there's a lot of different questions. There's new artists that have to come onto the scene and release great projects. There's also artists that we're fans of that need to drop projects this year because it's been a while and they're highly anticipated. So today, guys, we're going to be going through our top 10 most anticipated albums of 2022, and it's quite interesting because we had a fantastic year this year, but it sort of feels like, the floodgates are open now and there's going to be a lot more drops. So guys, if you want to stay updated on all the reviews and all of the rollouts for each of these albums, hit the subscribe button. Not only that, but this Friday, we're going to be doing a live album reaction to the Weeknd's new album, Dawn FM. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. You guys get to come into the live stream, kick it with us, chat with us as we listen to the album. Plus, you guys will have access to the full reaction once it's done, so you don't even have to come into the live stream. But if you guys want to access all of that, the link is in the description. It's all in our Patreon plan. So Lou, let's go through this. Top 10 most anticipated albums of 2022. Massive year. Happy New Year, guys. But what, makes an anticipated album for you? What are you looking for in this type of episode?
Yeah, it's definitely artists who haven't dropped in a while because, there's certain people that are kind of due for an album release, I would say. And then apart from that, it's just artists who I would say left me with a project that maybe wasn't their greatest in my opinion, and I want to see them maybe bounce back with a better release. So there's a lot to factor in, but I would say the main thing is I'm just hungry for new music from these artists, but I want to be fed. You know what I'm saying?
That's very
2021 kept me, eating well, but 2022 could be even bigger. So, there's so many artists to get through. I want to kind of go through some honorable mentions to begin with. Obviously, the Weeknd's Dawn FM isn't on this list because we're getting the album Friday, so it's kind of like, it's not anticipated anymore. It's here. But apart from that, there's Freddie Gibbs' SSS album, which I'm super hyped for. There's also Benny the Butcher's Tana Talk 4. There is Saba's new album dropping in February that I'm super excited about. That kind of wraps it up for me from my honorable mentions. There's also Lupe Fiasco's album.
That's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, but what about you? Any other projects come to mind?
I would probably say those three really come to mind for me, especially Tana Talk 4. I want to see how he's going to bounce back from the plugs I met too. Soul sold separately. I want to see what Freddie Gibbs has coming in this year, especially with a new different approach to the album, especially having so many different producers working on it. But let's actually start the list, guys. At number 10, Playboi Carti's Narcissist. So we did a full stream on this. We've done a lot of B-roll content. Not B-roll, my bad. We did a lot of pre-content on this. And, the question became, is this even an album at this point? Because there was a lot of different producers teasing that this was an album. Carti had got it on social media and said, fuck the sample clearances, whatever it is. Let's just drop this. And there's a lot of different things going into it. So do you even think that this is still a project in the works? And do you think we could see this in 2022?
Yeah, I think absolutely it is a project just because he put out that tweet where he said, it was kind of a group message with somebody, and he wrote, "Forget about sample clearances, drop the album Narcissist." And he's kind of been teasing this release for such a long time, but it is Playboi Carti. He's like the least reliable guy when it comes to release dates, right next to Kanye West. But what's interesting is that Whole Lotta Red has become this cult classic album for so many hip-hop fans, and the follow-up now is more anticipated than Whole Lotta Red was, I almost feel like. So it's going to be interesting to see when he does roll this out, but I'm just hoping for him to kind of fully explore that persona of the punk aesthetic, because I feel like Whole Lotta Red was kind of half-baked in its idea and concept, because as much as I love the old Carti style and those, I would say, video game arcade type beats that Pierre Bourne introduced, I want Carti to progress from it and fully, dive into this punk aesthetic or whatever else he's going for. So I hope that he does that, and I hope he kind of, shows us the full effects of this rage movement that he started to influence a lot of artists with. So that's kind of where I'm sitting with it. But how do you feel about it? And what are your thoughts on what's it called? On him updating the profile picture on Twitter to like this clown face?
Yeah, I think that we're going to see what's going to happen, because there was the whole thing of also him updating his Spotify pictures. I believe it was back in September. Yeah. So I'm not necessarily focused on that, but even at that, Academics did say that it would be coming soon, and he was the one that actually broke a lot of news for Whole Lotta Red. So listen, I'm hyped for it. We'll see what happens, but let's move on to number 9. We have Kid Cudi's Intergalactic plus another album, and this is awesome because he was was speaking on it, and he said that he also wanted to attach a short film to it, or a TV show.
It's an animated TV show. An animated TV show dropping on Netflix in the summertime.
That's going to be awesome. I can't wait to watch that. But take me through this, because Man on the Moon 3 has built up an extremely cult, let's say, fan base around the project. There's a lot of emotions that go into it. He's kind of closing off that, trilogy now, and he's kind of moving into something more futuristic, maybe with Intergalactic. So how do you feel about it? And do you think that this year is the right time for him to drop not one studio album, but two at this point?
I think so, just because, he's kind of having this resurgence, Kid Cudi, because Man on the Moon 3 is his first gold album since 2013. He's seeing amazing reception from the fans. They're loving it. And I think he also just broke a record for having the biggest sales week for a vinyl, and that was for Man on the Moon 3. So we're kind of in this Kid Cudi renaissance. I want to see what he's going to be doing on Entergalactic. It does sound futuristic. It does sound maybe psychedelic as well. So it'll be cool to see what he does with it. I think that at the end of the day, you can be guaranteed that you'll have some of the best hooks of the year, some of the best humming and just vocal effects, period, from Cudi. And yeah, it might be conceptual too, especially, if we're thinking about the fact that it's going to be connected to a TV series. I'm sure it's going to be very conceptually based. And apart from that, he did put out the statement where he wrote, "I'm trying my hardest to introduce new sounds and push the envelope sonically. It's going to be everything that people love about Kid Cudi music. The only difference is that some songs will be told from another perspective."
That's very interesting. That's where he gets me on that. I'm going to see how Kid Cudi's writing is going to evolve, because to my knowledge, has he ever done that? Has he really gone into different personas?
Written from different perspectives?
Not off the top of my head. I'd have to revisit his whole catalog to really get
He's probably done it a few times, but it's not the most common thing that he does.
But I mean, if he's really highlighting that in a statement, I guess it's something that he wants us to take out of the album. So I'm very hyped up to see the way he's going to introduce this new soundscape. But let's move on to number 8, Denzel Curry's "Melt My Eyes, See Your Future." Dude, listen, we were talking about Taboo the other day and how it was such a great concept album, because it was extremely raw, it was genuine, it's emotional, and then you got 2 albums that were fully freestyled from him with Zoo and then Unlock. So now it seems like he's going back to that old Taboo format with something that's more conceptual based.
He said he's writing this time,
and now he's writing this time. So how do you feel about that, especially that you're such a big Denzel fan? What do you want to see from him this time? Because you're a fan of all the 3 projects that he dropped since Taboo. I know you're a fan of Imperial as well. I am as well. But how are you feeling now going into the new year and maybe this new sound that you could get from Denzel Curry?
Yeah, well, he said that this new album is going to be a mix of what's going on right now in the world and also of Akira Kurosawa films.
That's awesome. So, I don't know what that means, though.
Makes it feel cinematic. But yeah, Denzel Curry to me is one of the most underrated catalogs right now. He dropped this comic book inspired album with Unlocked, one of the best concept records of the last 10 years with Taboo, an amazing freestyle record, and ode to his hometown with Zoo. So at this point, his catalog is amazing. I think that in terms of versatility, he's one of the best artists out. But with this album, I feel like this might be revolutionary to hip-hop, because he's going to be discussing things like police brutality, racial oppression, and so many important subjects. And there's not many artists, I would say, that have kind of dove into this since everything that's been going on in this new decade. So it will be cool to see his perspective on it. And he's also dropped songs like "Live from the Abyss" and Pig's Feet, where his vocals are commanding and powerful, and it sounds like he's maybe going into this new metal direction where you have those aggressive deliveries, you have those rowdy inflections. So in my opinion, I think that he's going to drop one of the best albums of the entire year, and that's exactly what he said, for his interview with Our Generation Music. So I have faith in Denzel. I think that he slept on by too many people. And to me, he's going to kill it, bro.
Oh, I think he will too. He's such a talented artist, and I'm going to see how he's going to bridge so many different gaps together to create one coherent sound. And as you said, it's going to be interesting to see the way that he tackles all this new content matter and puts it into a focused track list. But now let's go on to number 7. We have Eyez, The Forever Story, and this is awesome because we were anticipating this last year, and a lot of people have been anticipating a new album from him because DiCaprio 2 left people wondering, what could he go into next? What is he going to be able to showcase? Because the Never Story does have a concept to it, but it's kind of loosely packed. It's mostly him again displaying his rapping skills and then taking you through his days in Atlanta. And then you have DiCaprio 2, which was a full display of his skills, seeing how he's able to match up with different artists and show his chemistry. So how is JID going to level up this time? Because there's a lot of room to improve, but he's already done so much. Like, he could really have a serious 3-album run if he were to drop a W this time.
Let me drop some takes. I want to see if you agree with me. Okay, so I think that Jid is one of the most talented and has the potential to be a great for his generation, but he's missing that masterpiece, in my opinion.
Like that magnum opus?
He's missing that 2014 Forest Hills Drive. He's missing that album that's conceptual and that's kind of universally loved by everybody. And it's interesting because this is his third studio album, and we see that that's an important album in a lot of catalogs. Look at Eminem's The Eminem Show. Look at Kanye West's Graduation. Like, your third studio album is that album that, usually takes you from a promising artist to an established artist who's killing it. So how do you feel about that? Do you think that he's one step away from becoming a great?
I think so, because he has so much anticipation built up, and he's proven his skills and his ability. He's shown us that he has one of the most unique flows and deliveries, that the game has ever seen, for that matter. But I want to see the way that he's going to craft this next project, because I'll be happy with another DiCaprio 2 or another Than Ever story. I won't be disappointed because that's quality music. It's fucking fantastic. But I want to see him push the envelope. I want to see him, push boundaries that I've never seen him go into. So, yeah, saying that, he is missing that one magnum opus, but would you maybe consider the Never story on that level?
No, I don't think it's a masterpiece. Okay. I think it's one of the better debut albums of the last few years, but not a masterpiece. But regardless, I love how Jid introduces a new flow on almost every fucking song he releases, and I think he has the commercial appeal, being featured on Doja Cat's albums, James Blake's, and so many others. So the Forever Story is super anticipated for 2022, but let's now go on to number 6. Another album that we've had to wait about 4 years for, and that is Pusha T's fourth solo studio album. And ever since we started getting word that Kanye West and the Neptunes would be solely producing this project, I was fucking excited. Then Pusha T started making these very bold claims that he was going to top Daytona. And that's where I'm like, pump the fucking brakes, bro.
How do you feel about that?
That's a high bar. Come on, man.
That is a high bar. But I think it's merited because he's such a consistent rapper. And listen, there's always that sort of statement, comparison is the killer of joy. And that's something that I don't want to go into with this next project, because Daytona was a top 3 listen for me in 2018. I'd probably give it a 10 on a 10. It's literally a perfect album in my eyes. And how do you really replicate that? And listen, if he has a situation like Kendrick where he drops Daytona and then he follows back with another 10 on 10 project for me, like Kendrick I did with GKMC and then To Pimp a Butterfly, it might be one of the craziest runs we've seen of all time. Like, he has such a stacked catalog. So with that being said, okay, I think the whole Daytona purpose was, it was so well crafted. You got some of Kanye's best production of all time, in my opinion. It's literally the perfect coke rap album. So how does he do that again? How do you deliver something like that? Because Daytona was just way too perfect. It was like that coffin on the nail, that nail on the coffin. It was so good. So how does he do that again, in your opinion?
Again, by having this concise track list, which we do know it's going to be 12 songs. And I think that it has the chance of being the best produced album of the year, because you'll get those kind of old school samples from Kanye. You'll get those unconventional sounds from Neptune. So there's no way that this doesn't go right, because he also has one of the most convincing fucking deliveries in the game, and just the way that he's able to craft this coke poetry is unheard of to me in the whole genre. So Pusha T will probably come back with another instant masterpiece like he dropped with Daytona. But we're now in the top 5. This is very big because we waited so long for all of these albums, and we're hoping they come this year. They're not necessarily confirmed or anything, but they are likely to drop. So on number 5, we have A$AP Rocky's All Smiles, and it's been 1,321 days since 2018's testing. And to me, this is a very important drop, just because Rocky is one of the most refreshing voices in hip hop, and every time that he drops a song or an album, I just get this level of charisma, energy, and just him feeling inspired to make new music always gets me excited. And let me ask you this. He said that the album was 90% ready in May of 2021. Obviously, that was a fucking lie. But do you actually think it's coming soon? And do you like the fact that he said it's going to be more experimental than testing?
Oh, that's a very interesting claim. And listen, I don't think it was a lie. I think he was probably 90% done at the time, and then probably went back, sat on it, and kind of, discovered new sounds that he's going to be able to incorporate in this new track list. But the more experimental than testing. Testing was extremely experimental, but it still kind of, played into that psychedelic sound that you get from Rocky on previous projects. I want to hear refreshing records from him. Like, that's what was so captivating about testing, is that if you take testing and you play it against the rest of his catalog, there's not a single sound that sounds like a song, on testing. Like, that's what I'm trying to say is that it's such a big outlier for me. So if he could recapture that same sort of experimentation, I'd be extremely satisfied. Now, looking at All Smiles, I want to see him maybe go into a darker sort of mode.
Yeah.
I want to see him, sort of dip the lights down and kind of, show that aggression, show that hunger to come back and take the game over, because there has been questions about testing. It's either a split sort of decision on it. I'm a big fan of the project.
Yeah.
I love to listen. So do you really think it's going to come out this year, or does he take another year to work on it?
I don't think he's taking another year. I think he's going to drop it. And I like that you said it's going to be a darker sound, because I can picture him going for these lo-fi type beats. Maybe not the chopped and screwed stuff that he did in the past, but slower tempo production. And he also said it's going to be a ghetto love fairy tale. So that has me very excited. I think it's going to be his most mature album to date. And I feel like in terms of psychedelic hip hop, Rocky is truly going to be maybe a catalyst in the 2020s and show people how to craft this kind of sound to perfection. But let's now go on to our number 4. And this is Dr. Dre's 4th studio album. And I mean, listen, when it comes to Dr. Dre, he's one of those artists who already has this cemented legacy, but he only drops every blue moon. So this is maybe the least likely album to drop this year on this list. But at the same time, with the Super Bowl headline show happening and the GTA song drop, it's getting more and more likely. So take me through what you feel like this new album could bring to Dre's already immaculate catalog.
Well, I think it could bring a new modern sound that we've never seen from him before. Like, that's what was so cool about Compton back in 2015, is that it was this new sound that no one had ever heard from Dre before, and it was all packed into a movie soundtrack. So I want to see how he's going to recapture that. Plus, like, what you were saying about the GTA soundtrack is that it's facts. Like, he's not going to come out and start doing promotions for nothing. Like, if you've ever watched documentaries like the Defiant ones, or you've ever heard of one of his some of his interviews, he's extremely calculated. So the fact that he's on the Super Bowl lineup, and the fact that he's doing promotions with mega brands and video game brands like GTA, it really gets me wondering what type of sound is he going to attack here. And what's interesting about Dr. Dre's career too is that he's always dropped projects that are completely different than any other sounds that people are presenting, because of his immaculate mixing and mastering techniques, especially the way that he's able to incorporate G-Funk and his signature Dr. Dre drums into production. There's so many moving parts going into it. So I think the one thing I want out of this new drop, if it ends up happening in 2022, because we've been in this boat so many times before, I want to hear a flawless record. I'm serious. Like, if I hold Dr. Dre to the highest of standards, and I think everyone else does, because of the immaculate sound he presents with every single project. And I mean, the first Chronic, 2001, Compton, those are all flawlessly produced projects, and I don't think you're going to get nothing short of that. So that's at least my take on it. How about you? What are you feeling out of it?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I don't think Dr. Dre is going to recreate the wheel. I would love for him to come out with a brand new production style that could change the game. I don't necessarily see him doing that, but I think he'll deliver, and I think he'll bring together a cast of some of his favorite collaborators like Anderson .Paak, Kendrick Lamar, Snoop Dogg, and so many other greats. But yeah, I just hope this thing happens, bro, because Detox is like the biggest myth in hip-hop, but I hope that he actually comes up with a new project in 2022. But let's now go on to our number 3 pick, another artist who's taken quite the leave of absence, and that is Joey Badass with his 3rd studio album, which hopefully will come out this year. And he did say on our Generation Now Music's interview that he will be dropping the album this year. So, look, Joey had one of the best come-ups in hip-hop, dropping a classic mixtape with 1999, and he's also kind of proven to be hip-hop's anomaly in the sense that he's under 30 years old, but all of his songs are very conscious, they're very socially aware. And even in terms of certain standards in hip-hop and, let's say, tropes in hip-hop, like the glorification of money and power, Joey goes against that on songs like Paper Trails, kind of rapping about how cash ruined everything around him. So Joey's kind of always been that outlier, at least in his generation. So what do you think he brings to the table this year?
Well, I want to see what type of spirituality he's able to bring into his content, because as a Joey fan myself, example, like let's say Before the Cash or even All American Badass, like these are topics that he's touched upon, and they're extremely prevalent within his music. So I'm gonna see that. I want to see how he's grown also as a mogul, because yes, he's taken that perspective of Cash has ruined everything around me. He's already done it before, but now it's like he's getting into other ventures. He's in acting. He's in he's a mogul at this point. He has a lot of business ventures going on. So maybe giving some insight on that as far as content goes. And I think when you also look at like what type of producers that you want to see on this, I mean, Static Select is obviously the first, person that comes to mind, but the focus of this album for me is really going to be what he's talking about. That's what you have to look for in a Joey Badass album, because that's his strongest suit. And when you're looking at the overall cohesion of a Joey Badass track list, there's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of raw emotion. There's a lot of raw thinking and a lot of forward thinking at that. So these are all components I want to see within the writing.
Critical thinking too.
How about you? Like, what are some components that you want to see in this next album that are different than what he's released before in the past?
Well, listen, again, Joey's one of those artists who's always valued message over commercial appeal, even though he's blended that on songs like Devastated and Temptations, which I absolutely love off of All American Badass. But he did preview a song at Rolling Loud called Joey's Revenge, and this sounds different than anything he's ever put out, because it feels triumphant with the horns, and Joey sounds like he's in a celebratory spirit, and he's kind of flexing the Oscar he won and other accomplishments. So if he can have this hit single that brings a lot of ears to the album, I'll be super happy for him, because although he has a very tight fan base, I do want him to get bigger, and I do want more people to hear these mantras that he brings onto tracks and to hear how refreshing he is, especially as an artist in his 20s in hip-hop. So that's a huge album to come out this year. But let's now go on to our number 2 pick on this list, the only non-hip-hop album that we have on this list, and that's actually Frank Ocean's new album. Listen, it's going to be, 6 years now that we haven't gotten a Frank Ocean album?
1,964 days since Beyond. That's incredible. It's but I mean, it is merited, because he's someone that takes so much time with his craft and music, and he's obviously, experienced a lot of hardship within these past couple of years. So I mean, he needs to take time with the music. And, I'm a fan of Frank Ocean's approach, because it's always feeling over, let's say, trying to rush music. He needs to feel his music. He needs to be able to take time and experience to be able to craft new songs. And what was cool too is that we just got a recent freestyle. It was 9 minutes. It was on
Christmas.
And what was the show
Blonded
called?
Radio.
Blonded Radio. And I didn't tune in live, but I was able to actually hear the freestyle. And, I believe Frank Ocean's playing the piano in the back. And, it's cool because he's back to rapping now, and he's kind of bringing this new approach to his music. So take us through maybe what could we expect this year with a new album, and do you actually think it will come out, or does he need more time to craft this? And what's your personal opinion from a fan's perspective?
Yeah, well, there was word in September that he was shopping around the new album to record labels, possibly for a distribution deal. So that's a good sign. Apart from that, I mean, he's making an appearance on his radio show, so that's always a good sign. And that freestyle was super intimate and, very emotional, and kind of felt like he was going through his grieving process and turning it into art. So that could be a direction for the album, is him kind of grieving through the loss of his brother and, turning that into music. Or in 2019, he did say that he wants to kind of create this mythical album where it's more upbeat, it's more club type music, which would be a totally new approach for Frank. But I think he might, have some rapping performances on this new album, because he did have that on DHL and In My Room. But more than anything, I don't care what the direction is. It's the fact that it's a Frank Ocean album, because he conveys emotion better than maybe any artist that's currently active right now. And there's just something about the aura of a Frank album that I cannot resist. So whatever he decides to go with, and whenever he decides to do it, I'll be there to listen. But let's now go on to our number 1, bro. This is an album that you should all expect to be at our number ones, and that I hope you have at your number 1, because there might not be a better album to drop this year than Kendrick Lamar's new album. And oh man, the 5th studio album. The guy's just dropped fucking masterpiece after masterpiece, and it's almost like it's always been, can he do it again? Can he actually compete versus himself, bro? Like, everybody's competing versus the bigger artist or the better artist, but with Kendrick Lamar, it's a totally different narrative. The guy's just, he has such a catalog to place a new body of work up against. So Do you think he could live up to that? And what do you think it's going to sound like? Because we've been getting these oddball, cadences and flows. We've been getting this new approach. So what do you think we're in for?
I kind of want to say a different sound, but I'm low-key saying disappointment because I don't even think it's dropping this year, bro. I'm being honest with you. Like,
really? Wow.
We had said, and I hope I jinx myself, please. Like, someone up there, please jinx me. I really hope that, I end up saying that and it does come out this year because, we had this on our anticipated list last year for 2021. We did so much content on this album and nothing ended up happening with it. And as a massive Kendrick Lamar fan, I've listened to, probably almost every single song this guy's fucking released, and there's one thing that you could expect with Kendrick, and it's quality. It's a different type of cadence every time he drops a record. There's this sort of new aura and this sort of new branding around this sound. So that's what I'm, looking for, but I'm just concerned about the fucking release date at this point. Like, he comes out in 2021 and he says, smoking on your top 5 and, like, I'm not taking any, any prisoners this year, the whole thing, but with that being said, and it didn't drop in 2021, do you think that there's even a chance of this dropping this year, like now going forward with it?
Bro, you're gonna have to start asking retirement questions if he doesn't drop this year. I'm serious. Like, if you're taking 6 to 7 years off, like, you're no longer an active musician per se, even if you're doing features. But I hope he goes in a feature run and then ends up releasing this album because I've been waiting for it for too long, and Kendrick's really the voice of a generation, in my opinion, and I think that people need to hear his voice. They need to hear, just his perspective on everything that's been going on. And apart from that, I've said this, many times, but he has one of the best storytelling records, one of the best concept records. Now it's time for the Alter Ego album. I hope he does deliver it because he can come up with an amazing concept. And at the end of the day, when this album does drop, Kendrick's going to have everybody fucking scrambling, bro. People are going to start pushing their release dates behind. They're going to start wondering, if their album should even come out this year because it's going to be compared to Kendrick's album. So at the end of the day, whenever he drops, it's going to be a huge moment. It's going to shake up the game, and we're going to get some of the best lyricism, production, and records in general on the album. So there's no other artist I want to hear more than Kendrick.
No,
bro.
that's for
There
sure.
really isn't.
It's between Kendrick and Frank, in my opinion, because they haven't dropped in so long, and that desire for new music is so prominent. But guys, as I said at the beginning of this episode, NFR will be keeping you updated with every single rollout and album that ends up coming out on this list. Not only that, but as I said again at the beginning of the video, we will be doing our live album reaction to the Weeknd's new album Dawn FM. That will be starting at 12 a.m. Eastern time on Friday. If you guys want to access our Patreon tiers, it's all in the description. It's under the reaction tier, and it's also for crew members. So if you guys are interested in that, please visit the description. We thank you guys so much for watching this, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Thanks for watching the full video, and if you're new to NFR, be sure to hit that subscribe button, as we'll be keeping you guys updated with the latest album releases in terms of update videos, album reviews, and our own original series on the weekly. And we also have our Patreon plan available in the description below, where you can access weekly bonus content and also access to our Discord. So be sure to check out all of that, and we'll catch you in the next one.